yes.
Yes, it's getting recorded.
Okay. Very good evening, one and all, and it is a great evening. We are going to have a wonderful session on cognitive competences and psychological well-being by one of the renowned academician and psychologist, Ms. Gayatri Shweta Kumari. Currently, ma'am is getting the Department of Psychology at MOP Vaishnava College, Women at Chennai. I think it is one of the renowned institutions in Chennai. And when you say that heading the Department of Psychology over there is a great honor, and I think the quality you can get it from there itself. I welcome today's speaker, Dr. Gayatri Shweta Kumari ma'am, for today's webinar session. On behalf of the Department of Psychology, American College, Madurai, and the core team members and associating institutions for today's webinar session. It is our 289th webinar session. I hope we never thought we will reach here, and I think without your support, we will not be here. Thank you so much for your support. I welcome today's speaker on behalf of the participants over here. And now I request our core team member, Dr. Chandra, to introduce the speaker to the audience over here. Over to you, Chandra.
Thank you, sir.
Can you hear me? Am I audible, sir?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm immensely happy to introduce today's speaker, Ms. Gayatri Shweta Kumari, who's currently working as an assistant professor and head at the Department of Psychology, MOP Vaishnava College for Women in Chennai. She has graduated from Ethiroj College of Women and Women's Christian College. She has specialized in counseling and psychotherapy. And it is proud to share that she has got the university rank at her graduation program. She has got a rich experience of more than 10 years in teaching, both UG and 3 years in PG. So she has presented several papers at various conferences, and she has published research papers in reputed national and international journals. Once she has received the best paper presentation on marital attitude and premarital counseling organized by MSSW Chennai. And she serves as a member of board of studies at premier colleges, and she has also been as a resource person and guest speakers at various organizations. She has been focusing more on behavioral health and well-being. Her subjects of interest are positive psychology, counseling, human development, and research. To add a note on this, she is pursuing her doctorate currently in psychology at the University of Madras on cognitive competencies, resilience, and civic participation among college students. We are very glad to have you here, ma'am, and very much eager to listen to you on cognitive competencies and psychological well-being. The floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Chandra, and thank you, Dr. Suresh and Mr. Veera for having me invited, and special thanks to Dr. Subhashri, who has also helped me in getting my schedule over here. So before I begin, I hope my presentation is visible and my audio clarity is good.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Everything is fine.
All right. Thank you. So today I'll be presenting on a small part of my PhD thesis, which is on cognitive competence and psychological well-being. So the learning outcomes of this session would be, I would deliver what cognitive competence means, what psychological well-being means, what is the importance of cognitive competence and psychological well-being, some empirical research on the relationship between the two variables, what are the barriers for cognitive competence and psychological well-being, and some interventions that will focus on promoting and enhancing cognitive competence and psychological well-being. Start with what is cognitive competence. So we know that renowned cognitive theorist John Piaget has formulated developmental age patterns on cognitive development. So according to John Piaget, cognitive competence constitutes the cyclical process of assimilation and accommodation, which indicates that people can manipulate their personal experiences as well as organize and adapt their thoughts to guide their behavior. So he says that one's personal experience have to be consolidated and accommodated to a situation where we broaden our knowledge to guide our own behavior. So now, cognitive competence encompasses critical thinking and creative thinking to endure scientific constructs. However, it is not limited only to critical thinking and creative thinking. These are considered as core cognitive skills which will facilitate effective problem solving and decision making and lifelong learning. So there are quite a lot of other types of thinking styles. Predominantly, there are around 13 thinking styles, such as critical thinking, creative thinking, judicial thinking, legislative thinking, vertical thinking, lateral, and lot more. But however, we have all of them. This critical thinking and creative thinking is of paramount importance in most educational settings, and even in workplace. Critical thinking and creativity is seen as a competence for every adolescent and for employer benefits. Cognitive competence is more than an ability. So when I say ability, it's a skill. You can learn it, you can teach it to manipulate and strategize information, but an ability to internalize and self-regulate. And it is also a transferable cognitive skill to construct new knowledge and make sense of your surroundings. So we should remember that these cognitive competence that I'm listing out here, critical thinking and creative thinking, need not be instinctual, need not be genetic. It can be taught, it can be learned. It is a skill which we can internalize and use as self-regulatory in absence of facts, in absence of a teacher, in absence of a mentor. You can use this to help yourself make sense of your surroundings. So, what's the importance of this critical and creative thinking? Most of us over here know that WHO has listed critical thinking and creative thinking as one of their life skills. And apart from this, we also have to get updated that the new 21st century skills have critical thinking and creativity as the primary top 10 skills. So this is a small data that I have presented from World Economic Forum in 2016. If you see in 2015, problem solving, coordinating with others, and people management have been the top three skills. But in recent time, 2020 and above, we see a foresight that problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity are the top three skills which is required in workforce, in academic settings, in quite a lot of situations too. Let me define what is critical and creative thinking. So critical thinking and creativity can be translated into self-regulated cognitive skills, and these are skills to master and capitalize on to achieve better task performance, generate precise solutions to problems, and helps in right decision making. So we know that the top skills also include problem solving and decision making. If we are practicing the skill of critical thinking and creativity, then we are likely to reach the highest skill that is required globally, which is problem solving and decision making. Critical thinking refers to reasoning and making inferences. The two cognitive skills that will enhance your ability to critically think is reasoning and ability to make inferences, while creative thinking makes stretching one's spectacles, evaluating multiple ideas and alternatives, and generating novel and practical ideas. So, how, for an operational definition or for a research purpose, a critical thinking is defined as critical thinking is an intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, primarily understand, apply the knowledge, analyze, synthesize, try to consolidate the information, give it an abstract nature, and or evaluate information gathered from or generated by. How do we learn all this information? Through observation, experience, reflective exercises, communication. For what? To guide your belief and your actions. So it is seen that critical thinkers have these characteristics. They are generally open to new information. They seek and consider alternative hypotheses. They are okay about discrimination, criticism, sarcasm. They try to find out facts, not just rely on the assumptions. They are aware that stress and opinions of others can distort thinking. We know that in recent times, apart from IQ, apart from emotional quotient, apart from social quotient, we have a newer quotient called adversity quotient, where most organizational settings looking for high adversity quotient, which is a measure of burnout, which is a measure of stress, which is a measure of resilience. given at any point, how are you able to deal with an adverse situation, withstand the resilient, and bounce back over it? So that adversity quotient is high when people are practicing critical thinking. They are able to consider information from multiple sources, even from those that are difficult and adverse, and also situations that are unambiguous and uncertain. They are self aware, they are self reflective, they are active listeners, they are highly empathetic, they are able to recognize faulty thinking, which is fallacy in an argument. They are able to make judgments of pseudoscience, and they are able to recognize fraud and quackery and other elements of manufactured reality. If there is fabrication of facts, they are able to identify and reflect dominant discourse and not necessarily believe on the assumptions. They are able to conduct analysis, draw accurate conclusions, and articulate thoughts. These are few characteristics of people who are critical thinkers. Critical thinking has always been a focus in philosophy, but as we understand that psychology has evolved out of the science of philosophy, critical thinking is also a science of psychology. So, critical thinking is a purposeful, recent, and goal directed skill. It is a kind of thinking that involves solving problems, formulating inferences, calculating the likelihoods, which is the probabilities, and making decisions. So, the two main cognitive skills to help oneself grow as a critical thinker is the ability to learn reasoning and the ability to make inferences. If you see the picture that I have posted over here, all psychology students would be introduced to thinking, problem solving, decision making, and reasoning. So, in reasoning, we have two types, which primarily starts 12 years and around. So, which is deductive reasoning and then inductive reasoning. So, as we grow, as we mature with deductive reasoning skills and inductive reasoning skills, we also have to grow with objective reasoning, which is when situations are inambiguous and when situations are uncertain. Even in that case, when we are able to use our fullest cognitive structures and processes to sensate, collect, identify, analyze, evaluate, and make factual conclusions, then that's a skill of reflective thinking and critical thinking. And research says not many individuals above 40 years cross this skill of inductive reasoning. Most adolescents and adults stay back with deductive and inductive reasoning because the skill is not taught. And reasoning and inference are two main cognitive skills in critical thinking that are used to make judgments or decisions, accepting beliefs, and developing ideas and alternatives. So, since there are no explicit guidelines for judging what sufficient and reliable reasons are, it may run the risk of developing under or overcritical judgments. So, apart from those two skills of reasoning and inference, one should also hone the skill of rational thinking. What does rational thinking mean? I have just posted a small picture over here. You can remember it as an acronym RED. So, R stands for recognizing assumptions. You should have the ability to understand what is a fact, what is an assumption. A fact is time tested, an assumption is not tested. It is just based on your observation. And as you start observing, or your experiences becomes part of your belief systems. But do not go by assumptions, go by facts and evaluate arguments. When you are into an argument, it is necessary to break the argument in various premises and check for factual information and draw right conclusions. E stands for evaluating arguments and D stands for drawing conclusions. While engaging in a critical thinking process, one should make reference to reliable, strong, relevant criteria. So, how do you evaluate your arguments? When you have norms, refer to it, shared values, speak to people. If you have laws, legislation, please abide by it, rules, definitions, facts, values, and pay attention to situational factors also. Something like culture, context, the time, and the people that you're dealing with. They all help you in developing critical thinking. Critical thinking means one needs to be critical to the concerned issues as well as one's thinking so that one can proceed to make inference and deduction from the information collected for doing a rational evaluation and making a reasonable decision. So it is not just about making reasons, making inferences, or making rational evaluation, but also you have to make a decision making. So critical thinkers like to reason about reasoning and make inferences and conceptualization with rational justification. So they share a characteristics of just and fairness. So there could be situations where a particular problem may not be fit, but when it requires you to be fair, it is okay to be innovative. It is okay to move out of the facts and give it a rational justification. The habitual inspection of thinking is, in fact, an ongoing creation contributing to your cognitive and intellectual advancement. As we practice critical thinking, we are going to broaden our intellectual capacities. So, there is a difference between intelligence and intellectualization. Intelligence is just your learned knowledge, wherein intellectualization is your ability to reason out things and create newer knowledge and expand on your knowledge. Critical thinking includes skills of reasoning and making inferences. So, not just critical thinking, now we'll move to creative thinking, which is also a cognitive competence and a 21st century skill and a life skill. Creative thinking refers to thinking that is novel. So, there is an originality, there is a uniqueness, and that produces ideas that are of value. So, one of the pioneer in creative thinking is Dr. Sternberg. He defines creative thinking is an autonomous, so it is an independent choice to follow creativity or to be divergent in their thought process, and people can choose to capitalize on certain thinking styles and intellectual skills to maximize their creativity. Creative people would interpret problems in a new way and avoid being bounded by conventional thinking. So, what I call synthetic skills is when you are very much bounded by your conventional thinking. Your teachers say so, an authority imposes particular rules on you. So, when you are bounded by some conventional thought process, this is how I have to follow. You go by general rules and regulations, which is more characteristics of critical thinking. Okay, so that's called as bounded rationality or bounded by conventional thinking. When you're too much on this, you get stopped in your creative thinking process. Identify the most valuable and novel idea, which is analytical skill, and make out ways to demonstrate values of that idea, which is actually very practical. So, how does this creative thinking work as a process? So, whenever there is a situation where you have to be creative, you have to cultivate curiosity, you have to accept ambiguity. So, when you don't have a growth mindset or an open mindset, creativity doesn't flow. So, try to liberate freedom and courage to deal with the situation. Initiate independence and openness. And while exploring, try to be divergent in thinking process. So, how do you cultivate divergent thinking? Brainstorm, unleash your imagination, think as many possible solutions that's possible. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be foolish, it could be very creative or an intellectual one. Please brainstorm, diversify, access all parts of your brain. There are different cognitive styles that you can use to be creative. You can choose an art form, you can choose an kinesthetic form. Try to diversify your ways how you're going to deal the situation. Be motivated, stay passionate about the situation until the problem is solved, and reconstruct common concepts. So once you have possible solutions in your hand, now try to transform, be flexible and positive in applying, which again pulls you back to critical thinking. Convergent thinking is nothing but critical thinking, where you have generated as much as possible solutions possible for your problems. So now you have to be critical to choose to solve to decide upon the alternative problem strategy and to decide upon the solution that you have chosen. So explore different paths and embrace optimism, and that promotes creativity. But there could be barriers for creative thinking when you are controlled, when you are oppressed by fears, when you feel restricted and when you feel insulated and you're under pressure and stress and you are degenerated with apathy and you have narrow mindset or a fixed mindset and have uh, negative mindset such as you're subject to many cognitive distortions and cognitive bias, that's the death of creativity. So I had presented the two types of thinking, critical and creative thinking. Now, how does it actually work? So critical thinking is more of a linear thinking or an analytical thinking or vertical thinking. So you have many facts. From the various facts, you're going to analyze, evaluate, and come to one answer, which is a logical reasoning. When it is divergent thinking, you have one problem, but you have multiple ideas. You're going to be creative and horizontal, and you're going to be lateral in thinking, which takes the form of divergent thinking. So they both are two different things. Conceptually, critical thinking and creativity thinking are not dichotomous and conflicting. So I just said that these two things don't share many similarities, but there are huge differences. But while you start using this at one point, however you're being creative, to end with your creative process, you're going to apply a convergent thinking process, which actually employs critical thinking. And so I try to convey you that critical and creative thinking are empirically not two dichotomous and very conflicting things. Both of them have to operate together, productively leading to effective problem solving. Creative thinking and critical thinking are comparable to De Bono's lateral thinking and vertical thinking. So how are they going to be different? So this is a small, precise information so that you get the key concepts of what is critical and creative. So critical thinking uses analytical reasoning. Creative thinking is more of a generation of possible solution. It employs convergent thinking. Creativity uses divergent. Critical thinking uses vertical reasoning. Creative thinking uses lateral. Critical thinking works on probabilities, wherein creative thinking looks for possibilities. Critical thinking is more of a judged reasoning, wherein creative thinking suspend judgments. They are not worried about what are the end solutions, but they try to brainstorm as much as possible alternatives. Critical thinking are more focused, creative thinking are more diffused. Critical thinking want objective statements, while creative thinking are more subjective. Critical thinking has answers, one answer, wherein creative thinking has many answers to it, many solutions. Critical thinking is left brain activity. Creative thinking gets fostered when you activate your right brain. And most critical thinkers uh, work on verbal argument, and most creative thinkers work on visual. And critical thinking is more linear, creative thinking is more associative. And critical thinking requires reasoning, wherein creative thinking requires novelty and uniqueness. And critical thinking comes with S, but the assertion why it follows a particular fact. Creative thinking goes with S, and they also try to give an assertion and prove why their assertion could be workable. So we have seen about problem solving strategies as 5-step problem solving strategy, 6-step problem solving strategy. But I would recommend there is only two problem solving solution. If you're going to be creative thinkers, if you're going to be critical thinkers, your problem is solved then. First diverge, then converge. So by diverge, be creative in your problems, and then converge, be critical about your choices. To further construct one's own knowledge and meaningful learning, these two skills are indispensable to create knowledge and stay with original and novel knowledge. However, these two skills have been researched widely. I'm going to present to you what are the close linkages that has been empirically proven to say that they are of paramount importance. Why should you acquire and master on these skills? So here are a few benefits. Like I just presented, critical and creative thinking. All of us are both hemispheric function. So we can equally make use of critical thinking and creative, which is left and right hemispheric functions for effective problem solving and decision making. So when you just review on your life is all about multiple choices that you have made, multiple problems that you have solved, and the decisions that you have made is your life. So to make your life decisions, employ the skill of critical thinking and creative thinking. And also, like WHO, UNICEF, and UNESCO have listed, because it is life skill, it is essential you practice critical thinking, creative, and that leads to problem solving and decision making. I have posted these life skills in the order how WHO has listed. What are the benefits of critical and creative thinking? So, creative thinking adds value to everything you do. It compounds over time. So the more creative you are, it helps you to save on your time. Creative people draw people, so they are good in interpersonal relations. Creative thinking is key to learning. Creative thinking challenges your status quo. And what's the benefits of critical thinking? So these are based on empirical researches. It helps in academic performance. Right in your schooling days, it helps you to understand arguments and beliefs of others, critically evaluate those arguments and beliefs, develop and defend one's own well-supported arguments and beliefs. So if you see in our schooling, we are generally taught, if there are academicians and students, they will understand what it is about schooling and academia. So generally, there are two forms of understanding one's knowledge, either objective or subjective. So in both the forms, we are trying to use some forms of a Bloom's taxonomy, where we are going to understand their comprehension, their knowledge, their ability to recall primarily. But not much of these academia works look forward to applied knowledge. And that's why, just for sharing, a recent review had shown that there was an opportunity for a government opportunity for a post of a clerical post. However, it's well paying in a government position. There were more than 8,000 applicants who were PhD qualified, who had applied for for an clerical position of peon. Now, why do we have it is something shameful or something that has to be seen, because all of us have that craze of getting into a government job or the salaries that they are paying, but we don't see whether it is a diplomatic or it is going to help you dignified. So a critical thinker will find his own way, and he can hone the skill of being an entrepreneur and generating new businesses, generating newer ideas. He wouldn't fall victimized for for such a pay scale, or for such a government job. This is just an anecdotal information that I came across. So in academic performance, so it is necessary that there should be innovative methods in assessing the students' performance, such as giving them thought papers, such as giving them assignments that will help them to come out with their critical thought process and come out with creativity. Not it should be an open book test. There should be rational, not just asking the right answer, but an assertion why it is a right answer. So these will promote critical thinking skills. And at workplace also, it helps to reflect and get a deeper understanding of one's own and others' decision. It encourages open-mindedness and so promotes team skills. It aids us in being more analytical in problem solving, and in day-to-day situation helps us to avoid make foolish personal decisions, promotes an informed and concerned citizenry capable of making good decisions on important social, political, and economic issues. If you are a policymaker, if you are on a place of leadership and you have to make decisions on some policies, then you are going to be concerned about the greater people or mutual benefits. It aids in development of autonomous thinkers capable of examining their assumptions, dogmas, and prejudice. So they are not going to be victimized by an authority's power or any assumptions or stereotypes. So having said what is cognitive competence, I'm moving to what is psychological well-being. So let me just put how this science of well-being is understood. So science of well-being is something, say, in most of the psychology books or in the different specializations, psychology is generally seen as a deficit model. We talk about or study about, read about diagnosis, identification of disorders or mental deficiencies. But of late, from say 1980 and thereafter, there has been strength-based models, which is also looking in focus of promotion of mental health, not seeing psychology as a deficiency model, but seeing them as a strength-based model. So there comes the signs of psychological well-being. If you see a global population, there is a very small population who are mentally deficit, who require uh, interventions, who require clinical assistance, but there are more than 80 percentage who are at risk or who are very normally functioning, who are vulnerable to getting into it. So rather than focusing on the deficit, focusing on promotion of mental well-being and promotion of mental health can help people to uh, prevent. It's a universal prevention from not getting into mental illness, and so started the science of well-being. So I'm presenting a couple of constructs of well-being. So we know hedonic well-being focuses more on happiness. So to simply define, it is called as a pleasure attainment and pain avoidance, and it is more expressed in terms of subjective happiness of one's good and bad elements of life. How do I apprise situations in my life, and how do I feel happy about it? What's the pleasure I have gained? What's the pain I have avoided? That's the meaning of hedonic well-being. And we also have eudaimonic well-being, which is based on a Aristotle and Socratical thought process, where Aristotle says it's a true happiness that comes from what you're doing. So in recent researches, we would have come across employee engagement and flow. So they are all concepts brought from eudaimonic well-being. People can forget their physiological drives and get engaged in their working. On a lighter part, adolescents are so engrossed in media, getting themselves engrossed in WhatsApp messages or social media networking, forgetting their physiological right. So they actually enjoy what they are doing, where they are experiencing eudaimonic well-being, which focus on meaning and self-realization. I like what I am doing. And other scientific constructs of well-being. So we have a case who says that optimal psychological experience and functioning, when you're using your cognitive functioning and when you're using your physiological functioning to the thresholds, then you are experiencing psychological wellness. It is very much distinct from something called as subjective well-being, wherein subjective well-being is only in the words of the person who is experiencing, but psychological well-being is distinct when it could be assessed by an researcher or an experimenter or a clinician. And we have a well established multidimensional model put forth by Rife, which says psychological well-being constructs of all these six facets, which is autonomy, being independent, personal growth, an ability to self-accept, purpose in life, mastery over things, and positive relatedness. And subjective well-being is generally seen as in high levels of experiencing positive emotions and high levels of life satisfaction. And well-being is also understood as a second degree or second order constructs, such as when people are feeling very pleasurable, happy, and also including of socially well behaved, when they feel more related to a social, when they are drawn closely associated with the integration of people in society, when they contribute socially, when they feel coherent with the social life, when they feel actualized, when they realize that they are doing their level best in social benefits and they are socially accepted. This is also a form of well-being. And mental health is generally seen as a syndrome of positive feelings and positive functions in life. And we have other constructs that explains well-being, flourishing, and life satisfaction, wherein life satisfaction is defined as perceived distance from aspirations, and flourishing is seen as experiencing higher levels of positive emotion and psychological functioning and social functioning. And very recently, we have Martin Seligman, who is one of the pioneers in social cognitive learning theories, who has put forth learned helplessness. He has come out with a school of positive psychology, and he states that psychological well-being constitutes 5 elements named as PERMA, an acronym which is positive emotion, engaged life, uh, good in relationships, ability to find meaning and purpose in your life, and accomplishment. Whenever you have the experiences of satisfaction and gratification, you have contributed something. So they all contribute to psychological well-being. And positive. So summing up with all psychological well-being constitutes, it can be seen as psychological well-being is also a competence. It's a skill. When you're going to practice all of them, it is going to be a skill. It helps in emotional stability, uh, engagement, engaged life, meaning in life, staying positive, experiencing more positive emotion and generating and sharing positive relationship, staying resilient, withstanding adverse situation and bouncing back over your stressors. High levels of self-esteem and high vitality are synonymous to well-being. So what is the importance of well-being? So overall well-being can contribute or reflect on your physical health, your ability to cope with stresses, ability to balance emotional health, ability to manage relationships, and for your academic and career functioning. It helps in the development of desirable personality, emotional development, social development, effective moral development, aesthetic development, actualizing one's potentials, seeking good adjustment strategies, helping you setting goals in life, progress in societal life, and helping oneself in prevention of mental illness. So, having discussed much about what is cognitive competence, what is psychological well being, what are the benefits of staying psychologically well and practicing critical and critical thinking and creative thinking, what is the relationship between the two? So these are few empirical findings. I can share you the papers if you're interested on a later point of time. So however, I haven't mentioned the author's name. It's part of the footnotes. So few research findings that see a relationship between cognitive competence and well-being. There are interconnections and reciprocal influences among cognitive, moral, behavioral, emotional, social, physical, aesthetic, and spiritual domains of life when it comes to cognitive competence and holistic well being. So, when we take education, critical thinking is seen to play a crucial role in students' self regulatory learning. So, how many students would do their assignments or would be judicious in writing their examinations or would do independent studies in absence of a teacher, in absence, say, if it's offline classes or it is a distance program? uh, to speak truth, not many. I wouldn't say that not all. There could be a considerable number who would be independent students, but then there are many students who are not self-regulatory. But people who are high on critical thinking are seen to have the self-regulated learning. Even in absence, they show self-regulated independent learning, and they hone these skills of deep information processing. So, deep information processing is nothing but deep learning. Now, this deep learning or design learning, all are these concepts that we generally come, or design thinking, they're concepts that we come across in artificial intelligence. What is this artificial intelligence? We help this system to, we actually code algorithms for the system to critically think, which is reason and make inferences. And so they can be taught deep learning and design thinking, which is creative thinking. But higher order skills is crucial or significant for mankind. So we can actually learn this deep learning skills as we are learning critical thinking. And critical thinking is also associated with cognitive outcomes such as high levels of academic performance and attainment, intellectual engagement, cognitive performance, high decision making abilities, decreased cognitive bias and heuristic thinking. Heuristic thinking is a very faster way to make decisions, but then you're likely to make many errors or faulty judgments. Critical thinking skills enables adolescents autonomy in identifying health needs and making healthy choices. There are health researchers which has identified people who are critical. They show less uh, problems associated with body image or self-image or victims of eating disorders and so on. Critical thinking is also strongly related to having lower intention of substance abuse. Adolescents having higher levels of creative thinking show high levels of internal control, self-acceptance, lower levels of depression, and more likely to adopt positive attributional style. And creative people are good in academic achievement, high on self-esteem, high on emotional management, high on psychosocial development, good in identity development. And creative thinking is seen as strong predictors of life accomplishment, which is nothing but well-being. Critical thinking and creative thinking are developmental assets and strengths, and they help in promoting effective learning, well-being, and positive development. What are the antecedents of cognitive competence, which is nothing but what determines cognitive competence? So, generally, like external and internal factors, heredity, environmental stimuli, socioeconomic status, culture, developmental maturation definitely contributes to cognitive competence. But according to John Piaget, who has constructed the cognitive theory on operational stages, he says that around 7 to 11 years, children learn the ability of logical reasoning and they start decentering and stay less egocentric, wherein it allows them to consider the perspectives and clarify one's own thought. So, as we start promoting right from school, which is around 11 years, 7 and 11 years, we start introducing the syllabus of critical thinking and creativity, then they are likely to flourish. This logical and critical thinking becomes advanced by 12 years, wherein they will be able to think systematically, manipulate mental objects, test hypotheses, draw conclusions, not just learning book materials, but experiment. Experiential learning will promote critical thinking. It reveals that developmental age and maturation are related to development of cognitive competence. We also have Vygotsky, who has done many theories on how society can have an influence on intellectual capacities. He says that conversational skills, collaborative learning, peer learning, modeling behaviors, guidance, mentoring from tutors, and encouragement, secondary appraisals help adolescents learn better ways to think, reason, and solve problems. And there are evidences to say that children learn when they are in peer learning, when they are in collaborative learning, when they are in group learning. So competent peers and adults can help in modeling and dissemination of knowledge. And apart from this, social cultural context and settings such as family is your first school, classroom, school, educational systems can also contribute to cognitive competence in adolescence. Thus, critical antecedent of cognitive competence is whether there is a mediated learning experience. So, it is not that a child is born, you teach them in school and college, and suddenly you put them in a workforce and try to bring about solutions and problem solving for many activities. It doesn't happen one day. So, while you have to put your experience, assimilate, and accommodate, you should also use that two skills of being critical and creative whenever possible. So it is a mediated learning experience. And as you start practicing, it will become an self-regulatory and self-efficacious transferable skill. And there is also findings to say that structured programs on cognitive competence, activity-based cognitive competence training, and scaffolding instructions and guidance and social interactions are effective in helping children and adolescents to equip these thinking skills. Why do I have to say children, adolescents, because that's the true years when your brain is maturing and you're growing cognitively. After adolescence, it becomes more of an crystallized intelligence, and these are the growing years where it is fluid in nature and you can actually make miracles helping them to grow cognitively. What are the general barriers? So there could be habitual, perceptual, motivational, and emotional and cultural barriers. I have listed few. Let me, as there is paucity of time, let me just go fast. So 5 powerful barriers for critical thinking is when you feel egocentric, when you have I self, when you give more of a self-serving bias, when you're concerned more about your own benefits, when you are social centric, there's more of a group bias, more of a conformity, more of an obedience and compliance. And when you are victims of unwarranted assumptions, when you go by assumptions, you don't test it, when you are not hypothesizing and testing it, and when you're stereotyping, when you're being prejudiced, so they all amount to unwarranted assumptions. And wishful thinking, so when you're going more by pleasure rather than fact, and then relativistic thinking, where you're the truth is subject of matter of opinion. So you're bound by some rationality. He said so, the teacher said so, there is a dogma. Then you're subject to relativistic thinking. So how do we foster cognitive competence and thereby promote psychological well-being? However, we have come across some empiricism saying that cognitive competence promotes psychological well-being. There is not much of a literature, or in fact, I would say it's a gray literature, that all people who are psychologically well behaved will have high levels of cognitive competence. No, not much. There could be various other extraneous variables that could say so. But here I'm trying to emphasize that you can teach any skill that can promote psychological well being. In fact, we have newer concepts such as positive education, where just learning is traditional learning is not going to help, but then when there is going to be a positive education where you're going to promote psychological well-being alongside the traditional learning in school and college, will help an individual flourish. So we would have come across many instances where children who are in IIT have committed suicide. AIMS, it's not just one or two rare cases that I'm talking. There could be, to speak very recently, children who have had very good marks in their 12th exam, but yet not able to qualify their NEET examination, have committed suicide. Now, what is all that? So we are just for helping them to understand that education is important, but not giving them the objectives of psychological wellness. But as they start growing right from day one in schooling, when you teach them, you can be psychologically well behaved while you are going to hone this intellectual skills of critical and creative thinking. You're going to be cognitively competent. You do not worry about such failures. They should be they can find out different solutions. If not they can acquire a seat of a doctor. There are lot more other opportunities. So creative and critical mind will promote psychological well-being. How can this be possible? So there could be developmental educational programs. I have just mentioned a couple over here. There could be direct teaching. Just like in school, we have school and colleges, we have life skill programs or soft skill programs. There could be a program on critical thinking skill and creativity, a paper which is a credit paper where you're going to teach them bolt-on approach, where you're going to teach them, give them problems, help them to examine, and then teach. What you will teach them is reasoning skills, assertion skills. This is not something new. MBA students will come across a paper on thinking skills where they have to take many competitive exams. So they will be taught on reasoning and assertion. Or if there are PG students, they will know how a NEET examination or an aptitude examination will look like. So not just answering, but then also finding out the assertion, right? So direct teaching involves teaching deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and critical thinking, how to analyze a case. Okay. And embedded approaches, thinking skills are taught and practiced within the subject in school or college curriculum, where after every theory, you have a situation that's given unresolved conflicts as a summary, and then you can ask students to write a thought paper. You can ask them to come out with situations which can help them to develop this critical and creative thinking. And problem based learning can be incorporated, where you can give them problem situation and you can ask them to do a group work or individual work and come out with novel and challenging solutions. Example, in abroad education, it's only half day that they are going to have curriculum based education. Next half day they are going to be taught about skill. So if they are going to teach them physics in the morning, the next half day they are going to learn carpentering. So they are going to apply the science of physics, how to do the carpentering work. So problem based learning. Infusion approach. Infusion means having the subject matters and thinking skills learned together across curriculum. So there is not actually any specific lesson designs or lesson plans to teach, but the teacher is going to be mentor and help in delivering lessons, which is time based. Whatever is required in that moment, what is contemporary, they are going to deliver that. So I'm glad that I am given an opportunity to share little knowledge from my PhD topic, where I have been trying to disseminate knowledge that when it is a skill, it can be learnt and it can be taught. And as it is well pointed and listed in many uh, bodies such as WHO, UNESCO, that critical thinking and creativity are top 10 skills. So it is essential we don't hold back for longer and start promoting and teaching this as a part of school and college education, so that it also promotes psychological well-being and the individual will hone all the characteristics of being a cognitively competent individual. Education is not just about learning of facts, but training of the mind to think. If you see, there is a very comical note that I have mentioned over here. So you have a mother who has two kids over there. I hope you got the message there. So there's one boy who is just trying to drag many stones. The mother, who is not a critical thinker, now the other child who is dragging the stones, is actually ordering the child who is critical and creative. All you have done is chisel all day. Do something useful like helping your brother drag these rocks up the hill. Instead of pulling it over, this child who is critical and creative has chiseled all day, and it is going to bring about innovation. He is going to just rock it and just roll it over, right? Instead of dragging and spending so much time and pushing it down the hill. So never stop when people are criticizing. You should be welcome about critical, because a person who is criticizing or mocking you is your best friend to help you understand your strengths and weakness. So let's all start the skill of analyzing and evaluating, not just listening to authorities, but test it, agree to it, know the factual information, and be creative, because life is all about right problems made solved at right times, and wise decisions taken. Thank you, all organizers, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Gayatri, for that wonderful presentation. I am Dr. Veena, one of the core team members. I'll be facilitating the question and answer session for you. Can you stop sharing the screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. And it was a very excellent topic, and the topic which is very much needed, that too during this pandemic, many of us would have felt the need of critical and creative thinking. So thanks once again for emphasizing on the importance of competency for thinking. And participants, you could put the questions in the chat box, or you could unmute yourself and ask the questions. So we have been getting positive feedbacks from the participants right now. So
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Good evening. My question is ma'am, if you could share your views on where would spirituality fit in all this? And
Okay.
yes,
Yes, ma'am. Uh, Spirituality, if it has been misconceived as a religion, then I'm not discussing about spirituality here. Spirituality is an in organizational settings or in workplace settings or in educational settings. Spiritual intelligence is an ability or a self of understanding one's own self-efficacy and capacities for dealing with challenging situations. Spirituality is not about religion over here. So, like I said, if you're a critical thinker and a creative thinker, it is going to help you to understand your self efficacy. I hope I have answered Ms. Shabnam.
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Thank you so much. It's just that the nomenclature, I think, is I mean, what I would want to go further with is emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence is another realm where people get to think about their own self, and that is also very closely linked to self-awareness. So uh, then only I think life successful, handling the challenges becomes easier.
Of course, I do agree, ma'am. As I have been discussing, to be primarily a critical thinker and then be creative, as we move on with life, as we progress with age, we understand there is definitely some supernatural force that can have a control over us. So it will take some time for us to be wise and wisdom over understanding those religious contexts. But over here, it is just about self-efficacy of an individuals. So I'm not against any other context. So I'm very religious and pious person. So here I just want to make it in psychology as a science. Spiritual intelligence is seen more of an organizational competence.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes. Thanks, Shabnam, ma'am, and thank you to everyone for answering that question. Any other questions from the participants? Uh, can I have a question like, how do we inculcate this critical and creative thinking in kids? So, are there any ways and means we could like,
In kids, ma'am?
yeah,
Okay. Critical thinking and creativity, like I said, so critical thinking is more of an left brain activity and creativity is more of an right based. So in school, based on all this is how our curriculum is also being generated. However, in a school timetable, we have play time, we have craft time, we have quite a lot of other creative. Do you think they all actually work? Not much. So it is essential for parent, it is essential for teacher to promote more of an artistic skills so that they start using their right hemisphere, start becoming more creative. When it is about critical thinking, so apart from learning and answering 3-mark questions, 5-mark questions, it is essential for parents and also teachers to ask, give reasons why. So say for example, in school, we will have 20-mark questions for fill in the blanks, yes or no, and then multiple choice question. After that, we don't have much focus on having this. When it comes to higher education, we are asking them more of a 3-mark and 5-mark and detail. பசங்க அவங்க இஷ்டத்துக்கு ஆத்துன்ட்டு ஆத்துவாங்க இல்லையா? So when it comes to critical thinking, we have to ask them very objective, and that's why they students who score really good in they could be distinction holders in their college, but then when they go for a bank exam or when they attempt a aptitude exam, a competitive exam, they can fail. ஒரு கொஸ்டின் கேட்டா objective ஆன்சர் பண்ற போது they are more critical. So if you have to promote it in school, in college, so give them more leisure activities to foster creativity, to foster more of a critical thinking. Ask them more of an objective questions and the reason. Don't stop creativity at any point, because creativity leads to more of an critical thought as well. When they start exploring, they're going to be more critical, evaluating informations.
Ma'am, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Could you suggest any books, madam, to just improve critical and creative thinking for school students, ma'am? Any good author?
Oh, sure, ma'am. There are quite a lot of books done by kernel critical thinking skills. You have a website which actually supplements activities and exercises for kids, like puzzles. So you can refer to this website called Kernel Critical Thinking, and then you have California Critical Thinking. Um,
Okay.
Maybe I'll just share it with the organizers, the textbook contents, so that you can. It just didn't strike out my mind, but these are a few places where you can purchase for kids and
Okay.
adolescents, which will have brain teasers, which will have activities to keep yourself more agile mentally.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for patiently answering those questions, Gayatri. And now is the time. If you could put your email ID in the chat box, I think participants would get with their queries to you directly. And now is the time for vote of thanks. So I request Suresh Kumar sir to please do the honors of giving vote of thanks for today's session.
Thanks, sir. Not there.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Can I,
Yes,
sir?
Salim sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Veena ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Suresh, sir. Today we had a wonderful session by the Gayatri sir, ma'am. It was a very good your PhD topic, I think, cognitive competence and psychological well-being. You will defined the life skills, cognitive skills, and you gave the formula for the success today to training the mind to think. So whole of the sessions. As a bottom line, you said training our mind to think, how to think in cognitively, like creative and critically. So in that way, I think we can get the, as you said, the life skills like problem solving, critical thinking, and people management, coordination with the people, of course, emotional intelligence and flexibility, negotiation, all those keys. So you beautifully derived, and of course, and you linked with these life skills, you directly linked with our psychological well-being in terms of like personal growth and self-acceptance, autonomy and purpose in life, all those things. So I think we can, I can say it's we had the whole full meal. I think I can say.
Thank you, sir.
So yeah. Skills and linked with our thinking in terms of critical and creative, and how it is going to be benefit in psychological well-being, like development of our personality and proper emotional development, like social development, moral development, progress, and of course he very well explained like barriers, ma'am. Each %. So these are the barriers we have to come across. And you finally beautifully linked with artificial intelligence, how critically AI can be used and creatively thinking, all those things. The whole, it's a complete topics in the whole, in the one harmonic alignment, I can say. Of course, finally, we got fostering cognitive competence and psychological well-being. Like there are beautifully explained like bolt-on approach, he said, and embedded approach and the problem-based learning. So from A to Z, it covered, I believe. So definitely, all the participants today going to have the top skills with the help of creative and critical thinking, and in terms of developing their own well-being. So nicely presented, ma'am. So good learning and knowledge transfer today happened to all the participants. So kindly accept our gratitude on behalf of American College Madurai and MS Chellamuthi Institute of Madurai and Madras School of Social Work Chennai and the International Center for Clinical Psychology, Psychotherapy, Germany, Psycho-Oncological Association, Turkey, and Red Pond Educational Psychology Research Center, Madurai. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you all the participants. Thank you very much. We learned a lot.
Thank you, Salim sir, and thank you, Gayatri, for that wonderful session. And participants, kindly send your queries and your feedback to mywebinarfeedback@gmail.com. We will meet tomorrow with yet another wonderful session. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, organizers. Thank you, Dr. Veena. Thank you, Dr. Suresh. Thank you, Dr. Salim. So I'm really glad that almost all my key concepts have been well received, and sir had shared it in word of thanks, because word of thanks and feedback is where the presenter gets really gratified that people have been listening to them actively. So thank you so much, Dr. Salim, for that word of thanks. Thank you, organizers, for the opportunity. Looking for yet a good opportunity in future too.
And all the very best for your future endeavors, Gayatri. Thank you so
Welcome.
much.
Thank you.